when the gun was purchased. But there are texts from that time when Hunter said, "I was sleeping on a car, smoking crack on 4th Street and Rodney." The defense is supposed to start presenting its case tomorrow. President Joe Biden said he would not pardon his son if he's found guilty in that trial. Biden also said he would accept the outcome of the trial. Hunter is the first child of a sitting U.S. president to ever be on trial. Former Trump aide, he's supposed to start a sentence for defying a congressional subpoena. Bannon was found guilty on 2 counts of contempt of Congress in July of 22. A House committee called Bannon to testify during their investigation into the attack on the U.S. Capitol. He refused. Bannon's 4-month sentence had been put on hold while he appealed the case. A judge did tell Bannon today he can seek a stay of his order that could delay his surrender date. Bannon argues the charges were politically motivated. Ahead on News Edge, a group of Atlanta bicyclists
that lets migrants in and lets us work is the United States.
Arizona's proposal would allow state and local police to arrest people crossing the border without authorization. It would also give state judges the power to order people convicted of the offense to return to their countries of origin. Opponents called the legislation unconstitutional and said it would lead to racial profiling and create several millions of dollars in additional policing costs that Arizona cities, counties, and state cannot afford. The proposal is similar to a Texas law that has been put on hold by a federal appeals court while it's being challenged. While federal law already prohibits unauthorized border crossing into the U.S., proponents say the federal government has not done enough to stop people from illegally crossing over. They also said some people who enter Arizona without authorization commit identity theft and take advantage of public benefits.
The border crisis is impacting not just the southern border, but also the border to the north. Canadian authorities say they have broken up a large-scale human smuggling ring that moved hundreds of immigrants illegally into the United States. Canada's federal police said they arrested 4 people and issued arrest warrants for 4 others. The gang allegedly charged immigrants thousands of dollars each before moving them through communities in Canada and then across the border into the U.S. This happened between July 2022 and June 2023. Police said transnational criminal networks are exploiting people who want to make the cross-border journey. Police said some lost their lives during nighttime crossings, but gave no details. 2 of the people that police have charged come from an indigenous reserve that straddles both sides of the U.S.-Canada border. Local lawmakers are trying to overturn New York City's sanctuary city laws. This comes after a growing number of crimes committed by illegal immigrants. KTD's Fiona G has more.
Today in City Hall, the New York City Common Sense Caucus introduced legislation that they hope will help to repeal sanctuary city laws. Leader of the caucus, Councilmember Robert Holden, says that the current sanctuary city laws allow criminals to enter the city easily and without detection.
Why shield criminals? Why? If they attack 40 people and they have a robbery gang, do we want to keep them so they can victimize more citizens? It's certainly insane to do that. But it's common sense to get rid of these laws. They don't protect immigrants, they protect criminals.
As the mayor stated back in February, that he was going to start to open the doors of communication so that we could once again bring ICE and our police together and deport these criminals.
I think a city that chooses to be a sanctuary city that votes on that sort of gets to have those policies, and federal enforcement sort of will have to find another way around. I think it's just a positive thing for there to be cities that allow immigrants to have refuge. I think that's important that New York gets to play that role.
I think that's a good idea. I think they should revoke the sanctuary city laws. Yeah. Why? Because I think we need to have better control over the immigrants coming into our country as well as our cities. I am pro-immigrant,
Joe Biden
but I do think it has to be an orderly process.
Supporters of today's proposed legislation say that sanctuary city laws are actually preventing the NYPD from working together with federal agencies in order to identify and detain criminals entering the country illegally. They cited an incident from earlier this week when 2 New York police officers were shot by an illegal immigrant from Venezuela. Now, Councilman Holden is emphasizing that today's legislation would target criminals and not immigrants. Fiona G., NTD News.
For this year's election, that says Trump is holding his first major appearance today since his historic conviction last week. NTD's Arian Pastar has the updates.
November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country.
Former President Trump gearing up for the presidential election. Trump's campaign has reportedly started requesting information from possible vice presidential candidates. The Associated Press published a list of people on Thursday, which they received from people familiar with the matter. Among those are a number of Republican senators, namely Florida Senator Marco Rubio, Ohio Senator J.D. Vance, and South Carolina Senator Tim Scott. Also on the list are North Dakota Governor Doug Burgum, Florida Representative Byron Donalds, New York Representative Elise Stefanik, and former Trump cabinet member Ben Carson. Different types of paperwork have reportedly been exchanged with each of those people to vet them. A spokesperson for the Trump campaign commented, saying anyone claiming to know who or when President Trump will choose his VP is lying, unless the person is named Donald J. Trump. But just on Tuesday, Trump mentioned a few of the names on the list while speaking about potential VP picks with Newsmax.
Tim Scott didn't run as good a race as he's capable of running for himself, but as a surrogate for me, he's unbelievable. He's been incredible. Governor Burgum from North Dakota has been incredible. Marco Rubio has been great. J.D. Vance has been great. We've had so many great people out there. Ben Carson.
And also on Thursday, Trump is attending a town hall meeting in Phoenix, Arizona. It's his first major appearance since the historic conviction on felony charges last week. After that conviction, Trump did speak for half an hour, but didn't take any questions.
The only way they think they can win this election is by doing exactly what they're doing right now, win it in the courts because they can't win it at the ballot box.
At Thursday's Arizona event, Trump is scheduled to take questions from a live audience. That's according to Turning Point Action, which is organizing the town hall. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
At the National Mall as part of the commemoration of the 80th anniversary of D-Day in Washington, D.C. Luis Martinez takes us there when we come back.
As we naturally age,
Hunter Biden and his drug use around the time of the gun purchase. Israeli forces struck a United Nations school in the Gaza Strip, saying terrorists were in the school. This came while a gunman attacked the U.S. Embassy in Lebanon, injuring a security guard. President Biden delivered a speech on the 80th anniversary of D-Day in Normandy. He paid tribute to veterans, stressed democracy, and drew parallels to the current Russia-Ukraine war. This came as his administration will send another $225 million in military aid to Ukraine. Joining us now to explore the historical significance of D-Day on its 80th anniversary is retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb. He was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot and is the co-founder and executive director of Restore Liberty. Darren, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you. Now, today is the 80th anniversary of D-Day, when Allied forces launched the largest amphibious invasion in military history. Over 4,400 Allied troops were killed that day, including over 2,500 Americans. Bring us back to what happened on June 6, 1944.
Yeah, Tiffany, thanks for having me on. June 6, 1944 was the inevitable day that was arrived at due to months, in fact, in some ways, years of planning on behalf of the Allies, who said that this is the day, the time, and the location to do this due to the beaches, the weather, and many other circumstances that were a part of building this coalition across the United Kingdom and using their land. to stage them, and then moved across the channel. And if you've seen the channel and you've stood on the beaches as I have, you recognize just how big of a feat this was, and how this day defined courage for so many people as they left the flotilla and moved ashore and up the cliffs and beaches and the tough terrain to access around those beaches. And ultimately, it resulted in the liberation of Europe and the removal of the Nazi Party and those who supported them in Germany.
And even the youngest of the brave troops who landed on the Normandy beaches in 1944 are now close to 100 years old. Many say this could be the last round year that we'll be able to commemorate this event with the veteran generation that actually fought the war. In your view, what is the best way the free world can remember this day and not let it fade into the sands of time?
Yes, and I say that that is the greatest generation, and it's called that for a reason. And the best thing we can do today is remember their sacrifice they made and why they made it. And oftentimes when you talk to the soldiers, it was about their families, the people next to them that they were supporting. It was in some ways about this grand adventure of going overseas. But from a bigger perspective, many of them knew that this was an intention to free a continent from an oppressive dictatorship. And so the best way we can do to honor these lives is to live a life worthy of their sacrifice. And that could be a lot of different things. And then in the United States right now, with everything that we're going through, it can be getting involved in your school boards, in elections, in commissions, and testifying in the state legislatures. And you pick a passion like that and get involved in things. Serve this nation in the way that you know how, and what is your passion. That recognizes their sacrifice. And hopefully we can also not repeat the lessons of warfare, and we can settle things without having to do this.
Expanding on that, Walter Stitt, who fought in tanks that day and turns 100 next month, tells AP, quote, "There are things worth fighting for," adding that we'll learn one of these days, but I won't be around for that. Expanding on what you talked about earlier, how do we ensure the sacrifices made that day weren't made in vain?
Yeah, that is a difficult one because it's the nature of humankind, unfortunately, to want to resolve their conflicts through actual warfare rather than other means. And so one of the things we need to do as Americans is continue to be that example for everybody around the world of what it means to settle things diplomatically to the extent possible, and do the things that are necessary to prevent wars in the first place if we can. There's no perfect answer to stop all wars, but much of what is going on today was preventable. And unfortunately, it has gone the route that it has. So I think the best thing we can really do for these veterans and the lessons of everything of World War II and so many wars since is to do what it takes to prevent these in the first place and settle our differences another way.
On that note, President Biden and other world leaders marked today's anniversary in Normandy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky was also there. Many note that his presence brings the past of World War II and current tensions together. What are the lessons we can draw from history as we are once again living in what many consider to be dangerous times?
Well, going back to the idea that we can actually prevent many of these wars by making smart decisions by using other means, such as diplomacy and economics and things like that. There were ways to prevent these conflicts that are happening today. It's not 100% guarantee, but being as involved as I am in international relations and watching the affairs of state and inside of our own government, there are things we could have done that could have stopped this, or at least given it the best chance to have been stopped in the first place. And unfortunately, of course, this speech that was given at Normandy was really a missed opportunity to focus really on the veterans, the sacrifices they made, the difficulty of this mission, and everything that this mission entailed when it came to really Normandy being the start point of the liberation of a continent as they moved their way from there all the way to Berlin. So unfortunately, it just kind of turned into a campaign speech that focused on the wrong thing. There's no reason to link the message of Ukraine and Russia to the history of World War II. There's two distinct events, and that's not what today's supposed to be about. Today is supposed to be about those who are still alive on on the 80th anniversary of this day.
And Darren, switching gears a bit, in 2018, you actually promoted one of your lieutenants to captain on Omaha Beach over there. Tell us about that. What does this day mean to you?
Well, obviously, being on the Normandy beaches was one of those things that was on my bucket list. There's just it's just one of those things you have to do when you have a history background, you served in the military. You need to get there. And I took a lot of the leadership that I had within the battalion that I was commanding all over Eastern Europe and brought them all together on the Normandy beaches and said, you cannot experience this in any other way than being present and seeing the terrain, seeing the beaches, and understanding the best you can about what they went through. And I think it breeds a humility, and it makes you grounded in the reality that things that like that are difficult. Americans do hard things alongside of our Canadian, our Polish, and our British allies. And for them to see that, and for me to see that in person, was extremely humbling. And it gives greater context, and you can just tell that what you're looking at in the wheelchairs at Omaha Beach and Utah Beach, and in the different ceremonies, is heroism. And we need to do all we can to make sure that we honor that.
Darren Gobb, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, sir.
And in the nation's capital, the Friends of the World War II Memorial held a commemorative service in honor of D-Day. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has the details.
2 World War II veterans and the surviving daughter of a U.S. serviceman who died in the beaches of Normandy 80 years ago were honored this Thursday at the National Mall. I spoke with U.S. Army Major Matt Visser as he reflected on today's anniversary. Let's listen to what he had to say.
Today was meaningful to reflect on how much was accomplished by the greatest generation, but also to reflect on how unified we are with our allies. There's really strong alliance. Important for me to be a part of today. I've served with the 101st and the 82nd Airborne Division, as well as 18th Airborne Corps.
The 101st Airborne Division is the U.S. Army unit that parachuted behind enemy lines on D-Day. Foreign delegations also placed wreath this Thursday at the National Mall in commemoration of the shared sacrifice with Allied troops.
Really makes you reflect about what the finest generation did for future generations and how we got together after the Second World War to make sure that something like this would never happen again. It's really a time to think about where we are, where we're going, and what the future generations left for us to take care of.
I also spoke with Vietnam War veteran John Moreland as he reflected on what D-Day and World War II meant for his generation.
Well, my dad was a World War II veteran, but just being here, thinking after reading books on, the D-Day invasion and what this country did, it's honoring to me. You get chills, and anytime I ever hear, Star Spangled Banner or taps, it's hard to keep tears from getting in my eyes.
The Friends of the World War II Memorial read the list of the approximately 1,000 known U.S. service members who died on D-Day 80 years ago. It's also worth noting that at least 12 U.S. congressmen traveled to France, and at least 8 U.S. congressmen who are military veterans parachuted into Normandy this Thursday. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Luis Eduardo Martinez, NTD News.